I hate to say it, but I'll admit that I can sometimes be a video game snob. When somebody tells me that the newest big-budget action game is the weirdest thing they've ever seen, my initial reaction is to ask them if they played some crazy indie game that nobody's ever heard of. Does that make me a bad guy? Probably. But the truth is, I've played a lot of weird games. From kite-themed shooters to sitting simulators, today we're going to count down some of the most baffling experiences that I've ever had as a video game critic. I sure hope you're sitting down for this, because these are the 5 weirdest games that I've ever reviewed. While Kaiju Kite Attack is far from the weirdest game we're going to be talking about today, it is one of the very few that feels like it was made just with me in mind. After Nino's grandmother gets squished by the foot of a giant kaiju monster, an onlooker with a kite decides to take it upon himself to take down the giant beast. This sets up a fever dream that combines procedurally generated platforming stages and traditional 2D shoot-'em-up action to create something that is genuinely magical. The great thing about Kaiju Kite Attack is that it actually lives up to its crazy premise. The game is filled with wonderfully creative monsters that are so much fun to battle against, and the platforming action adds a whole new element to the tried and true shooting formula. Best of all, when you actually kill one of those kaijus, you take its power, just like in Mega Man. And the things you throw at the monster are just as insane as the rest of the game, giving you access to everything from fish to fleas to hairy legs. There's a pretty great selection of weapons to switch through, and learning when to use each attack is the key to victory. Now, when I reviewed the game back in 2019, I gave it a B+. I liked the concept a whole lot, but docked a few points off the score for a couple of gameplay issues and a few frustrating difficulty spikes. But hey, even if it wasn't perfect, Kaiju Kite Attack has continued to stick with me. It's the kind of weird game that probably deserved to break into the mainstream, especially now that everybody loves Godzilla again. Look, this may not be the weirdest game on our list, but it is one of the most fun. There's something kind of refreshing about knowing exactly what you're getting yourself into based entirely on the title. That's the case when it comes to Progress Bar Simulator, a game that does exactly what it promises. It allows you to simulate a bunch of progress bars. That's it. There's no hidden message here about how we as a society have become more impatient, or maybe how we're always looking for instant gratification. Nope. This is a game about filling up a whole bunch of different loading bars. Some familiar, some fancy, some rudimentary, some silly, some serious, and some that keep repeating themselves over and over and over again. When you fill up one progress bar, the next one is ready to go. It's an endless loop, which is either a good thing or a very bad thing, depending on how much you like loading screens. In the end, I gave it a C-, noting that it was a funny idea, but the hints at a deeper game ultimately go nowhere. After spending far too long looking for the point, I realized that life is just too short to play a game that's all about filling up progress bars. And who knows, maybe that was the point the developers were trying to make back in 2019. I mean, that's a funny theory, but I think that's probably giving the developers a little too much credit. Airplane mode can best be described as an anti-game, the type of product that feels like it's playing an elaborate prank on the player. Is the kind of game that simulates something that very few of us actually like to do, which is taking a long flight all by yourself. No matter if you take the 3-hour trip to Nova Scotia or the much longer 6-hour flight to Reykjavik, you're stuck sitting in a cramped seat experiencing the whole thing in real time. The good news is they actually do have a few things that you can do, like reading a book or watching one of the public domain movies on the tiny screen that's right in front of you. There are also music stations built into the game, not unlike what you might find on a real flight. I ended up playing through the game several times for my review, and each time I tried to be as engaged as humanly possible, going as far as to bring some small snacks and my PS Vita for the lengthy flight. And you know what? In that sense, the game genuinely made me feel like I was on a real airplane. What ultimately frustrated me about airplane mode is that neither the 3 nor the 6-hour flights added up to anything. There's so many ways you could shake up a trip like this to make it fun and worthwhile. I mean, what if I were seated next to a guy who just wouldn't stop talking about conspiracy theories? Or what if the people around me started to get sick? Or what if we have to fly through a terrible storm? Or I don't know, what if there's a monster that only I can see that's sitting on the wing? There's just nothing like that in this game, which continues to feel like a big missed opportunity. Airplane mode was AMC's first foray into the world of indie game publishing. It was also their last. If airplane mode is any indication of the types of games that they were going to publish, then yeah, maybe it's for the best they decided to stick with making TV shows. A lot of games have tried to be sexy, but very few of them have attempted to tackle the much harder topic of sexuality. CLT takes us on an honest and personal exploration of a woman's sexual awakening through little more than Rorschach tests and tarot cards. Is it erotic? No, not even a little bit. Is it fun? Maybe? That's certainly up for debate. The one thing I can say with confidence is that it's unlike anything that you've ever played before. Thankfully, the gameplay is a lot more straightforward than trying to explain the complexities of sexuality. All 10 stages use a deck of 24 tarot cards, with the goal being to navigate your way to the non-existent 25th card, which symbolizes reaching the climax. Every time that you select a card, 2 more will pop up, allowing you to choose the direction that you want to go, which may lead you to the next part of the story, or might send you back all the way to the beginning. When I reviewed this back in 2021, I ended up giving this a B-, even though I knew that it wouldn't be the kind of game that I would ever want to play again. I ultimately gave it points for its creative concept and unique storytelling, complete with purposely misspelled words and phrases. I honestly love that we're at a point where you can make a game like this, and I can't wait to play the developer's newest game, Who Killed Mr. White? As for CLT, it's easy for me to put my finger on why this is on a list of weird games. The USB drive found in the grass is just the slap in the face that I needed. It's a game that made me completely rethink the very idea of gameplay and interaction, giving me an experience that is so new and so unique that I still have a hard time describing it 3 years later. What I do know is that this is a daring mystery game that thoroughly rewrites the rules of gaming in the same way that Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless changed cinema. No, really. The conceit here is that you just found a USB stick in a field and decide to investigate it. Instead of loading into a title screen or doing the usual video game stuff, the USB stick found in the grass creates a new drive on your computer filled with all sorts of stuff to explore. In other words, it mimics what would happen if you actually found a mysterious USB drive and put it into your desktop or laptop. It contains a Word document, some pictures, a couple of ebooks, and a few password-protected folders. We have everything needed to solve this puzzle, including free computer software. The only thing left is for you to piece it all together. This is a game that never once holds your hand, instead hoping that you'll be intrigued enough by the setup and the mystery that you're just going to stick with its unconventional storytelling. At its core, it's a game about solving a few little puzzles to gain clues that'll help you piece everything together. Some of the clues will lead to dead ends, while others will add important information about who previously owned this USB drive. What makes the experience so cool is that you get to use your own real-world programs like Photoshop and Word in order to shed light on this mystery. This is one of those times where I had to repeatedly remind myself that I was playing a video game. Between using different programs and searching things on the internet, it's easy for the game's mystery to take over your life. At the same time, I could see a lot of people giving up on this one early on and then concluding that it's one of the worst games ever made. This is not one of those games where you're split on. There's no middle ground for this one. You either love it or you hate it. I loved it and gave it an A+, mostly for its audacity to be so completely different from every other game on the market. There were times when I actually felt like every movie detective ever, with a table full of old evidence, examining and re-examining the photographs, trying to find the clue that I missed the first or second or 500th time. That's an amazingly cool feeling. But at the exact same time, if you're not into solving those kinds of puzzles, you're just gonna hate every single second of this game. No matter which side of the divide you end up coming down on, I hope that you'd agree with me that we need more games like this that push the boundaries of what a video game is and can be. Hey, thanks for watching me look back at some of my older reviews. This is something that we're going to be doing a little bit more of in the future, and not just with weird games. I have a whole bunch of best and worst lists to get to from the literally thousands of reviews that I've written over the past 23 years. But for now, here's the question I have for you. What's the weirdest game that you've ever played? Look, these are only a few of the weird games that I've played. Obviously, I could probably do another 2 or 3 of these lists. Let me see your weirdest games in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back next week with a look at EGM Rank, Samurai Showdown, Last Blade, and World Heroes. That's right, it's the other half of the SNK fighters that we didn't cover earlier this week. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,